You are listening to the Fit Figure Formula podcast. I help female perfectionists beat self-sabotage and lose the weight for good using the Fit Figure Formula coaching program. I'm your host, Stephanie Riles, registered dietitian, personal trainer, and mindset transformation coach. If you've been struggling with all or nothing thinking, negative self-talk, or self-sabotage, this is the podcast for you. Learn how to get consistent and become the best version of yourself from the inside out. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fit Figure Formula podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Riles. I'm a dietitian and a weight loss mindset coach. I'm going to continue my series on menopause. So I think this is going to be part 3. So if you missed part 1 and part 2, you'll definitely want to go back and listen to part 1 and part 2 in terms of our menopause series. So all January, I'll be talking about menopause symptoms. I'm actually going to be bringing in a hormone expert, so stay tuned to that later on in the month. So we've talked about perimenopause and menopause. Menopause being that 365th day where you have no period. So menopause really is just one day, and then after that you are postmenopausal, and anything before that you are perimenopausal. So perimenopausal, we're having fluctuations in our hormones. And here are some symptoms that you might be experiencing. So this can happen in your late 30s or 40s. I told y'all I was shook whenever I realized around 39, 38 that like maybe I could be having some perimenopause symptoms, because I just had it in my head that it happened at 50. And in my mind, I'm 39. I'm nowhere near 50. And that was just a shocker for me, because I did feel like I started to experience some of these symptoms. So I'm going to go through a list and you can kind of see. Sometimes it's hard to tell because you have other things also going on in your life, but I just want to run down these symptoms, and then I'm going to give you some more tips and tools that you can use to help manage symptoms and some nutrients that you may want to start incorporating into your diet. So, of course, we have irregular periods, right? They might be shorter, they might be longer, they might be heavier, they might be lighter. They're just different. Skipped periods, PMS that feels worse or different than before, spotting between cycles, fatigue or low energy, weight gain, and fat redistribution into belly fat. So on the last episode, I talked about belly fat. So if you're concerned about that, definitely go back and listen to last week's episode. Loss of muscle despite doing the same things, quote unquote. So this is that time when estrogen is changing, and that impacts insulin, also impacts our muscle mass. So if you are 30 plus, again, we're losing muscle. If you're not actively like strength training, we're losing muscle every year. This also causes blood sugar swings, so crashes and cravings. You might be experiencing mood swings, increased anxiety, irritability or rage, low motivation, brain fog, trouble concentrating, or just not feeling like yourself. And I'm actually smiling while I'm reading these symptoms, because I know for me, I've always had bad PMS, meaning like lots of mood swings. I feel like I'm kind of moody. I'm kind of a moody person. So this increased anxiety, irritability, or rage, wow. Like it makes me actually feel better to know like, oh, in those moments, it's not really me. And it's so funny because every month I go through this where I'm very moody and I'm very upset. And every month I forget that I'm going to go through this. And then whenever I start my period, I'm like, oh, that's what was wrong with me. And I'm always so glad that's not really my personality, you know, like I separate it because I'm like, no, that's not me. That was my hormones going crazy, because now I feel like myself, and that was not me. But I forget every single month for the last 40 years. It's crazy. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So sleep trouble, like having trouble falling asleep, having trouble staying asleep, or waking up in the middle of the night. Having really light sleep. You're sleeping, but you're not feeling refreshed when you wake up. Temperature changes, like hot flashes, night sweats, and just feeling easily overheated. Other symptoms might be headaches or migraines, joint aches. I follow this lady she's a doctor on Instagram, and she talks about frozen shoulder syndrome a lot, which I think is pretty interesting. Breast tenderness, hair thinning or shedding. I think I'm definitely experiencing that. And then changes in appetite or hunger cues. Some other symptoms might be poor recovery from workouts, slower metabolism, insulin resistance, depression, reduced stress tolerance. Oh my gosh, I for sure have experienced this, but I also attributed it to just post-COVID life. You know, I was so stressed out during that time of my life, and I feel like my nervous system is just like way more fragile now. But at the same time, I'm also getting older, and I'm 42 now. So again, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes because multiple things are happening in life, but I definitely feel that. So sexual changes, like this is more like menopause. So it's saying vaginal dryness, pain during sex, lower libido, urinary urgency, recurrent UTIs, dry skin, brittle nails, increased cholesterol, higher blood pressure, bone density loss. So that was a lot, y'all. That was a lot. So lots of things happening, lots of changes. So if you're not feeling like yourself, no wonder, because that was a lot. So the rules for your body are now changing. And today I'm going to talk about some specific tools and lifestyle shifts that might be incredibly supportive for you during perimenopause or postmenopause. So understand that the things I'm going to talk about today, if it's a supplement or something like that, you're always going to want to ask and talk to your primary care physician. This is not intended to be any specific medical advice for you, but it's just something that you might want to look into. So first thing I'm going to talk about is ashwagandha. So this is used for stress and cortisol support. Ashwagandha is an adaptogen that helps your body adapt to stress. So when we're talking about perimenopause and menopause, we're talking about our body reacting differently to the stressors that we're putting on it. And those stressors can be lack of sleep, over dieting and like super low calorie diets, working out, like doing lots of cardio every day, overworking out, trying to work out 6 days or 7 days a week, mental and psychological stress, right? And so stress management is so important during this time of our lives. When we're not managing our stress, it can make our cortisol worse. So that can worsen belly fat storage, increased anxiety, sleep disruption, and make fat loss feel like it's impossible. And so I'm going to have Allie Damron talk about this, but she has said, you know, cortisol is something that we actually do need in our bodies, right? But we just don't want it to be chronically high all of the time. So we're supposed to have rises and falls in our cortisol. And the issue comes in when it's chronically high because we have all of these different stressors. And so ashwagandha is not like a sedative or anything like that, but it does help you regulate your stress response so your nervous system can kind of calm down. So it can be supportive for anxiety, for poor sleep, or just feeling wired but tired. So have you ever felt like you're really tired, but your brain just like won't shut off and you're just like awake, but you're tired and you really want to go to sleep? Ashwagandha can help with that. So these supplements are tools, are not magic, but ashwagandha works best when it's paired with adequate calories, protein, and rest. So we talked a lot about that on the last episode. So another supplement that you might consider taking is omega-3s. So omega-3s are crucial in the inflammatory response. It helps your brain and your heart. And as estrogen declines, inflammation tends to rise. So omega-3s can help reduce inflammation, support joint health, improve brain health and mood, and support heart health, which becomes important after menopause. So you can get omega-3s from fatty fish like salmon and sardines. You can get it from flax seeds and chia seeds, or a high quality supplement if your intake is low. So when you're doing your planning for your week, and this is something that I have my clients do inside of the formula, is we have a protein, we have a carb, and we have a healthy fat. And part of those healthy fats is nuts and seeds. So those flax seeds, those chia seeds, it's so important to have those. Sometimes we'll just overlook them because they're not like something that you can really chew on in terms of like chia seeds, for example. You may just skip putting chia seeds on your yogurt because you don't think it's like super important, but it's so super simple to do, little prep, and it can help with the inflammatory response. So if you're experiencing joint pain, brain fog, increased inflammation, this can be a foundational nutrient that you want to add to your diet. So when you're planning, I know they just redid the dietary guidelines, but I know it used to be at least 2 servings of fish per week. But if you're not into fish or if you're not a meat eater, you can also do flax seeds, chia seeds, or a supplement. So I think I might have talked about this one a little bit on the last episode about limiting caffeine and alcohol intake. So during perimenopause, your tolerance for caffeine and alcohol often changes. So we're talking about excess caffeine. I know y'all love your coffee in the morning, okay? And I actually started also drinking coffee in the morning. Excess caffeine can spike cortisol, worsen anxiety, disrupt sleep, and trigger hot flashes. So we had a sleep coach come into the formula. This was several months ago. And I believe she said that, try not to drink coffee after 12 because it has a half-life of like 5 hours. So meaning like the amount of caffeine that you drink, 5 hours later, there's about half of the amount that you had. And then it takes another 5 or 6 hours to get the rest out. So if you're drinking something with caffeine in it, so that could be coffee, it could be some types of tea, it can be your pre-workout. For those of you who work out in the afternoon and you're taking pre-workout or an energy drink in the afternoon, you might think, okay, I'm just taking it, at 3:00 for right now, but it's still in your system and you might be having trouble going to sleep because it's still actually in your system. So just something to be aware of. Your morning coffee, if you're just having 1 cup of coffee, shouldn't be that big of a deal. It should be out of your system by the time it's time to go to bed. So then alcohol. Alcohol can increase hot flashes and night sweats. It can also disrupt blood sugar. It can worsen your sleep quality and increase inflammation. So again, this is not about never having coffee or a drink again, but it is about the timing, it's about the quantity, and it's just about being aware. So if you are a person who's relying on caffeine to survive throughout the day, it's really important that we look at the core of, am I getting enough sleep? Why am I so stinking tired? Do I need to take a multivitamin or something to make sure that I'm getting the nutrients that I need? Am I eating every 4 hours or so and having protein, carb, fat? Like really try to get to the root, because just downing caffeine all the time is not good. And it's actually making the problem worse with your hormones and your sleep. All right, another supplement. So I think I mentioned this before. I've been taking creatine. This can help with muscle strength and brain support. So creatine is one of the most underrated supplements for women in menopause. I do think that's starting to change, honestly, but maybe also because I've been looking at it more and I'm taking it more. And so I might just be paying attention to it more. But as estrogen declines, women lose muscle more easily. So muscle is not just about aesthetics, okay? It's about your metabolism. It's about your strength. It's about your bone health. It's about your longevity. I heard someone on the internet say that muscle is the organ of longevity. Think about as you're getting older. Are you having trouble getting up off of the couch? You ever had to help your grandma or pull your auntie up off the couch because she's not strong enough to quite get herself up off the couch or off the toilet? We got to keep our muscle, y'all. And so again, these like small 5-pound weights, if you can do 5 pounds with your arms, you can at least do double of that with your legs, right? And so we really want to be strength training. I highly, highly recommend making sure that you have a trainer created program just for you and really focus on keeping the muscle that you have while you're in a calorie deficit for fat loss. Muscle also helps you to manage your blood sugar much, much better. So creatine can support muscle strength, training performance, cognitive function, and energy availability in the muscles and the brain. So I told you guys, I've been taking it for about 3 months or so. And before that, y'all, I was tripping. I was really like, okay, I've got to do something. I knew I had to do something. I honestly didn't expect creatine to help me the way that it did. But after a few months, I'm like, oh my God. For the first time, I was like, oh my God, I feel like me. I feel like Stephanie. And that's really important because I was feeling really, really bad and thinking like something's got to change because this is really not good. And so I would highly recommend trying creatine. Again, talk to your physician. I don't know of any contraindications, but it definitely has helped me. So muscle does not make you bulky. Remember that muscle actually makes you more compact, right? So muscle doesn't make you bulky. If you're getting bulky, you're eating too many calories. So this supplement can be really helpful for menopausal ladies who are trying to preserve their lean mass and help their brain function, especially if you have like brain fog, things like that. All right, so then magnesium-rich foods. So magnesium helps with sleep and relaxation and also craving. So magnesium is a key nutrient during menopause. So it supports sleep quality, muscle relaxation, stress regulation, blood sugar balance. And many women are already deficient in magnesium. So some of these foods can include leafy greens, which are high in magnesium, avocados, bananas, dark chocolate. So when you're doing your planning, plan in some of these foods. Again, if you're using the formula of protein, carb, healthy fat, then you're probably already going to be including some of these like the avocado, etc. Vegetables like spinach, Swiss chard, kale, broccoli, and just a tip, magnesium is better absorbed from cooked greens than raw. So I know sometimes I get questions about like, well, doesn't cooking decrease the nutrients in certain things? And sometimes, yes, that's the case, but actually magnesium is better absorbed from cooked greens than raw. So that doesn't mean don't eat raw. It just means have both, have a variety, right? And so then fruits, avocado, we list it as a fat. I think botanically it's a fruit. Bananas, dried figs, legumes like black beans, lentils, edamame, chickpeas, including nuts and seeds like pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, almonds, cashews, and Brazil nuts. So especially pumpkin seeds are one of the highest magnesium foods available. So this is saying a fourth of a cup is about 190 milligrams versus something like chia seeds, which is like 95 milligrams. Again, have a variety, eat the things that you enjoy. So fun foods like dark chocolate, if you're into dark chocolate, cocoa powder, great for evening cravings and magnesium support. Whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, oats, whole grain bread, salmon, tofu, plain Greek yogurt. So women 31 and up need around 320 milligrams per day. And it says many women fall well below this, especially during menopause. So I think one of the key things that helps my clients to feel better when they start working with me is we start eating single ingredient whole foods, incorporating some of these, because these foods, honestly, like kale and broccoli and spinach and bananas, they're good for multiple things, right? So when you start eating single ingredient whole foods and you're planning your meals and you're not overwhelmed and you just start feeling better, you start feeling better mentally, physically, energy wise, even before the scale starts to move. And that really means something. So if you're struggling with sleep, nighttime cravings, or muscle tension, this might be a good place to look and try out either magnesium supplements, or there's so many foods that do have magnesium in them. I would just, start planning out your foods so that you can incorporate some of these higher magnesium foods. And rest. We talked about rest because this part really, really matters. So during perimenopause and postmenopause, your recovery capacity changes, and that increases stress on the body. So it makes it sometimes harder to recover. It can increase fatigue, hormonal disruption, increase risk of injury, slower progress. And so this is not laziness. If you just feel like I'm just lazy, imagine your body going through all of these changes and you're sitting here like, oh, I'm just lazy. But your body is actually going through chemical and hormonal changes that do really affect how you feel. Girl, you are not lazy. Being able to feed your body well, move your body well, and then also have mental tools like I teach inside of the formula to get yourself to take action is going to change your life. You're not lazy. This is going to shift how you think about yourself and shift your identity. So no more statements like that. You're not lazy. And then also reducing HIIT. So we talked about this high intensity interval training. High intensity intervals are not necessarily bad, but we just don't want to be doing it too much because it can backfire during menopause. So excessive high intensity interval training can lead to cortisol spikes, inflammation. It can actually stall fat loss, even though I know you think working out hard, you're sweating a lot, you're trying to burn as many calories during that session as possible. Sometimes it actually does stall fat loss. It can hinder your progress because a lot of times we get hungrier. Think about when you're doing those, you're actually getting hungrier and may not be realizing that you can eat 200 to 300 extra calories really quickly, like without feeling like you're overdoing it. What works best for a lot of women in this phase is making sure that you are actually strength training, that you are doing some walking, 7,500 steps or more. And I tell my clients to do interval or incline. So interval doesn't necessarily mean high intensity intervals. High intensity intervals means during your work period, you are working at max capacity. So max capacity means you're not talking, you're breathing very hard. You don't have the capacity to talk when you're doing high intensity exercise. You're getting your heart rate up really high and then you're coming back down. So intervals, the way that I want my clients to do them is just, yes, you're increasing your speed a little bit, but you can still pretty much hold a conversation, right? And then come back down. So, and then also I just want to say, if you love doing HIIT, do it twice a week, right? Just don't do it every day. That's all I'm saying. And then prioritize strength training. So a lot of times we discount our walk because we feel like less intense cardio doesn't lead to the best results, but that actually is not the case. So I hope that this was helpful. Some more tips on what you can do. So let me just kind of recap. We talked about ashwagandha. We talked about omega-3s. We talked about limiting your caffeine and alcohol. We talked about adding creatine. We talked about magnesium-rich foods and how much we need. We talked about rest, and we talked about reducing your high-intensity interval training. So I hope I made clear the difference between just interval training versus high-intensity interval training. Again, you don't have to completely stop, but just do 2, no more than 3 a week. All right, that's the episode for today. I do want to invite you to join the Fit Figure Formula. If you're listening to this in real time, you have a couple of more days to join the Fit Figure Formula and get an additional 1 month of coaching with me. So that's going to end January 15th, 2026. So make sure that if you want that additional month, you can join. If you miss the cutoff, totally fine. You can still get a phenomenal 4 months of me in your back pocket, coaching you and helping you every step of the way to master your macros and your mindset, even during menopause. Really consider adding these to your regimen and tracking and seeing how you feel. I would love to help you inside of the Fit Figure Formula. If you are enjoying these episodes, do me a favor and rate the show. Give me a 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, I think you can write a review. I would really appreciate it if you wrote a review, gave me a 5-star rating. If you're on Spotify, you can leave me a comment. What do you think? Do you have any questions? You guys can follow me on social media at Stephanie Riles on Facebook. I'm also doing my TikTok, y'all. I'm getting into this TikTok finally. So if you haven't already, follow me on TikTok. My handle is dietitian Stephanie Riles. If you're on Instagram, I think it's Stephanie Riles Dietitian. Sorry that they're not all the same. But yeah, find me on social media. You can join my free Facebook group. I do go live in there and give not only tips, but also answer questions inside of my Facebook group called Weight Loss for Female Perfectionists. All right, I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Fit Figure Formula podcast. If you're new here and you're struggling with your fitness journey, I invite you to take a super simple next step. Click the link in the show notes for a free training. If listening to this podcast has been helpful, imagine being inside the Formula Coaching Program. You can apply for coaching with the link in the show notes. I hope to see you inside.